Hello, friends, neighbors. Johnny Wish Neighbor here. Welcome down the Nook and welcome to Sunday, which usually means, if I can find the time, we're going to shoot some samples. And today we've got some Irish whiskey samples and a little bit different because all of these Irish whiskeys have some peated whiskey in them. So thank you to Dark Cloud for sending me these samples. I've just poured them out. I've let them breathe for a few minutes, usually while I set up. And we'll go through the legendary Silkie. So I've got the legendary Silkie, the first blend, and then the legendary Silkie Dark, and then the legendary Silkie Midnight. We go up in peat levels as we go through, and we change the casks slightly, and we really change the ratio of grain and malt. So if you're interested in tasting some Irish samples with me, why don't you pour a little bit of Irish if you have it, Silkie even better, and come on back. 3, 4. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully you poured a little bit, maybe even have Silkie. I've never had this whiskey before, which is really the point of doing samples. And thank you again, Dark Cloud. This Silkie is interesting to me. It's on the cliffs of, oh boy, what's the distillery's name? It looks very different. It's cool in Gaelic. And I think I read that you say Slieve League is the distillery name. So I think this is all sourced still. Maybe not. I know they're making their own whiskey. I don't know when Dark Cloud got these samples, but I know they started with sourcing their whiskey probably from Cooley. The first one here, the legendary Silkie, has won some awards, and it is a mix of grain, corn, whiskey with some single malt, and it's in a 70-30, so 70% grain and 30% single malt, but only a small portion of the single malt in this one, 4%, is peated. They're really transparent on their website. These are all as they should. 46% natural color, non-chill filtered. So even as I know I don't have a good background for color comparison, but I can see slight color variations, which is fun to think about what cask went in here. I believe on their website, there's actually quite a mix of casks in here. We've got ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, virgin oak, and this one has some rechar in it. So anyways, that's a lot of kind of numbers and information. Let's see what the legendary Silkie, is like. Nose and taste. Oh, that's interesting. At first I was going to say, it's got some classic sweet fruits, little like toffees kind of thing, but there's something else on the nose. Maybe it's that little bit of peat. If it is, it's right now for me, it's kind of earthy and mossy. It's not ashy or anything heavy like that. Yeah, now that I've said that, I'm gonna say there's definitely a peat smolder going on, but for me, it's a little more forest floor and a little less beachfront driftwood. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. Feels good in the palate. It's nice, benefiting from that non-chill filter. I think it's coating, but it still has quite a bit of nice buttered Irish whiskey going on in there. Peat is there, but it's not heavy. This is not. This is certainly not a heavy peated whiskey. It's just in the conversation for me. It's a depth. I'm going to stay with where I said on the nose, an earthiness, a mossiness, a forest floor, not quite dank. Like I don't mean where we go down really in that musty. I'm just saying it's got a little bit of that walking in a forest after a rain. My cousins are gonna mock me for that. Anyways, let me try another sip. Yeah, it's what I'm gonna say is it's just a sample, and I'm just trying it with you right now. So everything is just careful first thoughts, but I find it's quite nicely balanced between some general fruit sweetness, some nice a little bit of earthy, peatedness, but some buttered corn, toffee from bourbon kind of. It's a nice blend. Like this is a a relaxing, approachable blend with a little bit more character than some that don't have that peat in it. Very interesting. So then moving from the Legendary, we're going to try the Legendary Dark. Now the Dark here, I think has all the same cask except for it doesn't have the rechar anymore. And we've gone from a 4% peat to a 15% peat. So they're amping up the peat, but it's still, I think, a 30% single malt, 70% grain, which they are saying is corn. Again, all on their website, which is fantastic. Let's try the dark on the nose. Significantly more vegetal. Now I can get a slight little bit of brine, but a little bit more than this lighter, sweeter. Yep, you know, this one definitely is a little more coastal, a little more brooding, a little more peat in the nose. Still pretty sweet. I don't know, I'm almost feeling like I'm getting a little more sherry on it. By that I mean now the fruits are a little bit more berry, a little bit darker. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. Now that is very interesting. The mouthfeel was actually a bit lighter, but then as I kept it around in the palate, it definitely went darker. Now, there's more peat. Now there's more campfire. There's a little more smolder for sure. With the smolder, it takes the lighter, sweeter fruits and stews them a bit, right? So now, again, I just feel, I don't think numerically there was more sherry in here, but this is tasting more sherry, and it's a little spicier on the palate, a little more perk too. I know we've dropped the rechar cask in here, but this is it could be the perception because of the peat for me right now is carrying some of these secondary savory flavors. But where I say I'm getting more spice, where I'm saying I'm getting more stewed fruit, I'm also getting more, wood tannins. Very interesting. So more approachable, light, some buttery, but a little character with that peat. Here now we have gone into a lightly peated malt. This is playing in, I think I read on their site, it turns out to be like a 22 parts per million, but just of the 15%. So it's going to be even lighter than that. But now it's really in the conversation, and the finish plays into the perception of more spicing. So coming around to the third sample, this one is Midnight. And this one is certainly the most different from these two in the sense of the numbers. Right here we've got 70-30 malt grain. Here we have 100% malt. So we've lost all corn. And then there's some other casks in here. Like these are kind of ratios. I know we don't have a rechar on this one. But here, like we've got a stout cask and a red wine cask. And they specify Oloroso, whereas here they just say sherry. So I think this could be a different beast. We'll just see where I am. And of course, my palate has shifted. Of course, I clear it as I can, but we'll see where this is at. This is Silkie Midnight. As I said, this one was, I should say this is also, I think, 35% peat. But where I was going with this is, I said, as I'm comparing, this has more sherry. This actually has some rich sherry for me. This has now some of that fig, some of that raisin, some of that black currant. Could be that I'm getting a little acclimatized to peat. Because it's here, but where I noticed the jump from 4 to 15, I'm noticing more the push into those dark, stewed side of sherried. The peat is still here, but it doesn't feel more peat than this, at least on the nose. It feels more, that fig, raisin, little currant. All right, let's go in the palate. Sláinte. Palate here was clearly the most different from these two. Where I was saying in the nose, I was getting more of those, fig raisin notes. The palate is significantly more peat for me. Significantly more, espresso coffee, bitter chocolate, like dark chocolate. Like a lot more peat. I even got like not quite antiseptic peat, but just starting to go there. Spices are more peppers, less Christmas spice, like less sweet cherry and all those other cinnamons. The palate was wildly different. It carried itself differently too. Of course, it's all malt instead of some corn. We've really lost that round, soft butter, that light toffee. This to me really has none of that left in it, and it's all a sherry peat. Okay, there is a little bit of vanillas in there, so there's some ex-bourbon kicking around there. I shouldn't run down that line, but very, very different malts. So it's tough to try to unpack this for you. I do not drink enough Irish whiskey. Dark Cloud is clearly on a mission to fix that. Thank you, sir. I would say if you're into Irish whiskey, I would absolutely run after the first one. I think this is a really nice blend. Like it's approachable, it's sweet. Not coming back. This is caramel popcorn in a carnival. Like it's so sweet and sugary, buttery sweet compared to brooding on the end here. And then I would say, like, if you're feeling more adventurous, I would do exactly this line. If you know your palate well and you really like more full peat, you like sherry and peat playing around, I would jump right to Midnight. But if you're still more like Irish is your absolute go-to, I think these are more classic Irish profiles for my palate. As I said, don't drink enough. Anyways, that's a nice walkthrough, and I'm really glad I got a sample because I've seen the bottles on the shelf and I haven't reached for them. They're priced a little higher than I usually go for without any knowledge. In this case, I'm going to consider which one I'm going to bring home. And I'm not sure which one because I don't drink a lot of Irish, so I'm not sure. But this was a sweet treat. This was well balanced, and this was exactly that, a dram for midnight. Thanks for joining me here. Hope you guys had a little fun. Please share your thoughts about Silkie Irish whiskey.